Hello again, gang. It is Wes with Pikes Peak Trades. This is video 2 of the weekend following trading that closed April 9th, 2021. This is the metals and miners update with a debut of a couple cryptocurrency counts. Wanted to add that to the mix here, as it certainly is an exciting time out there in that sector. It's been a couple weeks since I've given an update for metals and miners, so I wanted to try to get caught up. I think there are some very interesting things happening and want to take you through the ones I usually do, but also want to show a few of my favorite junior silver miners and talk about some of that upside potential. So we are looking here at the GLD weekly chart, and this is that multi-month potential bull flag that we're trying to get GLD out of. And you'll notice that this week it just pierced and attempted to close above its falling 8-week EMA. So that is absolutely the next area that it needs to conquer. It needs to close above that blue moving average to try to get back to the mid channel, to try to give it a chance to conquer the rest of its moving average cluster, as that's going to be some significant resistance. It's still a long ways from getting out of there. It's going to take gold to make a run, probably pretty strongly above 1800 for that to happen. And as of right now, the jury is still out. So that's why you still see this primary red 3 bear count in potentially this. Now, this would be a deflationary crash. This would be really, I think, the market crash scenario. I think it's very, very low probability given everything that's happening right now from a macro point of view. But given how little traction gold has had really since last July 2020, we've got to keep some of this possibility here still on the table. If we take a look into some smaller time frames, let's get us into the daily chart. And on the daily chart, you're going to see that GLD was able to move up above its 8, its 13, and its 21. Sorry, that's its 8, 21, and 34 EMAs, with a little bit of pullback on Friday that caught support at the in this case, the 8 and the 21 EMA. That might be it for a shallow wave 2. That would be a little rare, and you're going to see on some of the mining charts, I think there is room for a more typical fib pullback, especially if we get kind of that sub-degree stock market pullback that I was calling for in my first video. But if we see just rapid continuation upward market-wide, then we would say that wave 2 is in, and we're going to be looking to target the upper parts of this channel in this wave 3. And this should be a very bullish wave that we hope, gold bulls hope, will soon kick off in this sub minuet of minute 3. Okay, getting into that small time frame, you can see the potential here of an ABC down. That could be it, but I'm actually thinking it's going to need a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down into an A to make that first leg of a simple zigzag, then with a B and a C. So if that happens, then most likely that takes a few days. Okay, so maybe some patience here is still needed, and that again would just be a back test of one of these broken resistance rails. Would kind of take it back here to that 200 period 15-minute moving average that I do like to see kind of tested as support and then held to move above. If not, the count here that I normally would chart in purple would put that 2 here. And then this is actually a sub-degree 1, 2, and we would be ready for a blast off. This is the mid-channel line to try to close this selling bear gap, get above this bearish 0.618 algo here, and try to set itself up for a strong run into the low 170s. So I can't give you a strong probability either way. I at this point would call it a coin flip. And we're just going to have to wait to see what futures do on Sunday and Monday. Let's look at GDX. So looking here at the gold major minors, and we can see absolutely relative strength here. So weekly chart, nice move with the weekly close back above both here, the 8 and the 21 EMAs, also trying to pierce into there near the very top of the week, the 34 EMA. Also want to point out that this, now it is resistant. This goes all the way back about 6 years, and it did close above it. It had held it as support in November. It had lost it in January, early Feb, and now it had been bumping up against it. We got the close above it. We want to see that conquered by also getting all the way out, obviously, of this big bear flag. And that's what's going to target the 50-week. That's what's going to target significant pivot resistance at about 39. So on the daily chart, you'll see a look very similar to GLD with that minute 1-2 in place. We had a back testing of that 8 EMA just like GLD. And also like GLD, I'm leaving room here to a more typical fib. So this low didn't even really get to the 0.38 fib. So I'm thinking more typical, get back towards, in this case, the 21 and the 34 daily EMAs before we see that next fueling move. Otherwise, that too is in, and it's just going to blast right out of that channel early next week. Into the short term, you're going to see what I'm looking at there, where I think this is leg A, a B bounce, and then we would be looking for 5 small degree waves down here to complete that wave 2. SLV on the weekly tried to pop itself out of this potential bull flag, got rejected out of it at both the 8 and the 21 EMA. So you can see still significant resistance above it. And into the daily here, you're going to see that daily look with the attempt to get out above it due to the difference of scaling there on that chart. So again, possibility of a very shallow wave 2, just like GLD, just like GDX. I'm leaving the possibility that we probably want a back test. So back test here of the 200-day simple moving average. It would also back test to the 50% fib. That's actually, I think, what I would be leaning towards. I called it a toss-up on GLD. I would probably lean towards a more typical fib taking place before we try to kick off in a bullish wave 3 here. This would be wave 3 of minor 1 of intermediate 3, and that's going to have to challenge the very significant pivot resistance in the mid-25s. Onto the short term, you're going to see this is potentially an ABC down that could have that done. If I go ahead and add that fib, let's just see where that actually would have gotten in. See, that's pretty shallow here. So it's possible you can get a shallow fib for a 2. It's actually kind of rare. See, it's in between the 24 and the 38% fibs. It's about a 30% fib. So in that case, that's kind of why I'm leaning towards the more typical fib that would just be another back test here of that potentially broken bull flag. So now let's get into some individual names. So I'm going to take you through more than I usually do. So here is AG. Its weekly chart is in good shape, strongly above all of its MAs, but just punching up against significant pivot resistance. So this mid to upper 17 area, the next one is in the mid 19s. This is the place that's got to be conquered. Into the count that I have it in is looking at, just like you've seen. I mean, this is kind of typical. So are we in a 1-2? So would we see that more typical fib pullback here? Does it need a little bit of rest to start the week? If not, it could have been super shallow, or it also could have been over here. So that could be recounted to show. Again, we just have to wait and see exactly what we get. But like you've just seen, I see that ABC here pretty consistently throughout these names. Roll through these silver miners, more of the bigger names. Here we've got CDE. So right at this is years worth of resistance in this particular black line, right at about 950. Still showing that weekly doji, so some indecision there. Still healthy with its MAs, but also like you would have seen on AG. Now I'm showing on this one the bull potential. So this would be the more typical fib for CDE to pull back to under the black count with a 1-2. This would be the ABC. This is what the bull count would look like. So the bull count would say that 1-2 is in. This is a subdegree 1-2, and we're just going to see a massive blast off. And if that happens, that run is going to go for the rest of the month of April and would probably be an outperformance in that particular sector. Now, back to the count that I think is slightly more probable is that black count looking for the 1-2. If you don't have positions, if you want to have positions, if you want to add to already existing positions, this would be your last best place to do it if these bull counts are correct. So we get into FSM now. So FSM is out of its potential bull flag, nicely up on the week, well over 8%, back above some of its MAs. And we get into its more detailed count here. And we're going to see again, are we kind of begging for that 1-2? This is the one where really a pullback that had already occurred would be extremely shallow. And so I would be very, very surprised if within this part of the candle movement, if there actually was a degree 1 and a degree 2, especially here at what I'm counting as a minor degree. I'm seeing here, although this is an inside day, I don't really see that as being strong move for a continuation up. But again, in bull markets, if this is in fact kind of the reinitiation of a bull leg, surprising things can happen to the upside. We'll look on the 60-minute here, and this is kind of what I'm seeing. So a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into that top. There actually isn't any divergence here on MACD or RSI 9 on the hourly chart. So maybe that does say we get one more pop before a pullback, or maybe it's very, very shallowly in right here. And this, like you saw in the purple bull with CDE, is a nested 1-2. So the last of the bigger names I want to show you is Hecla. So this is a recount. So not a recount due to any failure of a previous count. I think this is just an improved count. It really looks like Hecla since the end of 2020 is put in a triangle. So I had tried to count this as a staggered set of 1s and 2s. You know that can be for some waivers. Like me, I have difficulty with triangles. I a lot of times get 1-2 nested counts mixed up with those overlapping legs of a triangle. I have gone to the triangle count here because it makes a lot more sense for this drawn out sideways movement to be a contracting triangle. So when it breaks out, and I am expecting it to break out, that breakout should be significant. So we should see Hecla win here, these long-term pivot areas, and I've got it up to a $14 projection, more than a 100% move after we complete this set of minor waves. Now that resetting count here for Hecla does mean that I'm now just ready for a fresh set of impulses to occur. So you can see that triangle here with A, B, C, D, E. It counts internally pretty nicely. Are we going to see that 1-2? So if we do get a pullback to this lower channel, I think that would be an excellent, excellent buying opportunity, maybe 585 to 590 to try to load up for some big moves up over the next few months. Okay, so now into some miners before we do our crypto. So the junior miners here. So looking at AYA. So I think has put in its 1-2. I think it at a larger degree. I think it's solidly within this wave 3. And you're going to notice these projections are 100% plus moves. This is even conservative. This is the most typical, the more probable fib. But with this counting now as a 1-2, it could easily go 2.62, 3.62. So, with these juniors, this is essentially like holding leverage. Yes, they're volatile, but the payout here is going to be bigger than I think some of the names that you see that I've already tabbed through. Here's Defiance. So Defiance, unlike some of the others, has yet to break out. It just wicked up against the top of this potential bull flag and still kind of holding this support right here at this lower line. So Defiance needs to see that move up. I want to see that top resistance line conquered this week. And again, look at how bullish that upside target is. So we're talking, this is a 3x move after a 50% retracement. And this is just a typical fib. So as I'm attempting to show, I think some of these moves in the juniors could just be amazing. Last one here in the junior space is Vangold. So this is on the OTC pink slips over the counter market. VGLDF is the ticker. And you're going to see a pretty steady move up. So we did get the higher high here in March, creating a set of higher lows. There's no EW, there's no fib on here. I'm just showing you where that channel tracks. So that channel tracks. I mean, could it be all the way up here? This would be crazy. This would be a 5x move. If this is an accurate channel, at some point we would expect it to get hit, and that would put it into the summer months. And I'm not ruling anything out here on some of these really well established junior mining companies. Okay, so let's get into the first ever chart that I've released of Bitcoin. So I have Bitcoin here within the last primary leg of cycle 3. So last primary leg here of cycle 3. So we've got our cycle 1, our cycle 2, primary 1, 2, 3, 4. And this projects out, I think, a $75,000 target here over the next couple months in Bitcoin. Then I think some rest. I think this divergence that you see on the weekly, I think it's going to set just like it did in late 2017. I think it needs a few more months to play out. So I'm going to call that maybe June, July for a fairly significant pullback. And then the target for this last primary leg for this, actually here, this cycle 5, who knows? I mean, sky is the limit on that. Get into the daily, you're going to see the detail of that. So after this primary 4 that fibbed out real nice, almost perfectly to a 38% fib of that primary 3 move, and intermediate 1, 2 takes it to a typical fib here just above 71,000. A little bit of rest maybe sometime end of May, and then we get that last move up that I'm calling for here. So you're watching this tick through, and this is XRP, and this is just absolutely astounding. It is up over 100% on the week. What an absolutely amazing move. It's one of the few, of the bigger market cap cryptos that hasn't actually broken out to an all-time high. So, I'm not typically one to say that you need to take the laggard trade, but these fibs, even just fairly typical extensions, are easily putting it to all-time highs at some point over the next year. So, where I have this, I have it in an intermediate 3. If that just keeps busting up, we got to look to a higher fib at about 1.54. And then from there, I think that would probably coincide, if that takes place, if this doesn't cap it here, with that resting move in Bitcoin before it actually makes a primary degree top. We dial that down a little bit more into the daily. This rail I had actually connected to a previous peak before this primary 1. it's indicating that about 130, maybe 130 to 131 could be a resistance area here. You can see that that's already into quite an amazing extension. And I've got that as a fifth wave extension of this intermediate three, which we kind of know that cryptos, commodities, gold, silver, they like to extend quite bullishly in wave fives. That's what I've got it in. This breakout here at 80 cents was huge, huge in its significance. And I think at some point a resting move back. So a resting move to back test that, let all these MAs kind of catch up to the price before that next big push. And like you saw in the weekly chart, that next big push, I think, could take it up to $2. Okay, so that's it for the Metals and Miners update. Again, hope that you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. And like I said for my stock market video, I'm extremely, extremely interested to see where we open. Unlike stocks, there's no reason to think at all that metals and miners are overbought, not at all. Are we going to see that 1-2 pullback? And that's kind of in the short term, the big question in my mind. Or can the markets just continue to blast through? Will we see resistance levels like this diagonal, like bull flags get conquered? Let's see what happens Sunday and Monday. Either way, I'm ready. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. And as always, best of luck to you out there every day that you're actively trading and for long-term investing.